Yo guys, welcome to the Zelda Fiction. Today we are gonna see, what if Naruto got banished and becomes the leader of West Empire? Part 3. If you end up liking this video, please consider subscribe, so without further ado, let's get into the video. Arena 1. Shizuka and Shiro were engaged in a flurry of taijutsu, though to most watching, it looked like a well-practiced rehearsed dance, rather than a full-on fight. Some spectators who were focused on this particular fight even began clapping in rhythm with the pace of the fight. The two kunoichi had sparred on a number of occasions back home, so they somewhat knew the fighting style of the other, leading them to duke it out almost in a battle of attrition. At least in theory. They were both fully aware of the looks they were receiving, especially from a certain raven duck-haired shinobi with a red-eye infection from Konoha who was leering at them, probably planning on, somehow, convincing them to marry him and produce strong children for his clan, not realizing that he would most likely die trying. The mere thought sent shivers up their spines. Besides, Shizuka still had to find and fight that Naruto fella. After all, if local tales speak true, then he has to be a powerful individual, worthy of her hand in marriage. Her village would definitely welcome him with open arms. Shiro flinched momentarily when she felt a pair of lavender eyes glare at them, no, not them at Shizuka, but she was close enough to be caught in the crossfire. In that moment, Shizuka grabbed her uniform and performed a classic over-shoulder throw, sending Shiro out of bounds, seemingly oblivious to whatever Shiro felt. Winner, Shizuka of Nadeshiko. Makarov announced as the winning kunoichi helped her comrade to her feet, the two holding a whispered conversation as to why Shiro flinched like that. Apparently, Shizuka has quite a dangerous task ahead of her, or so Shiro explained. Off to the sides. Hinata turned away, frowning as the feeling of territorial infringement she had just felt disappeared. Naruto couldn't help but smirk as he looked at her. Arena 2. Izumi heeded Gimli's words concerning his weapons. No, really, she never touched them or came close to them, other than deflecting their trajectories with the back of her hands. All she did was transmute his armor into a solid piece of metal that made Gimli look like a rough but powerful warrior, statue albeit one with a moving and cursing head. Winner, Izumi Curtis. Riza sighed. She was glad that the Elric brothers didn't pick up her more troublesome tendencies, such as destroying anything they touch that vaguely irritates them. In the crowd of spectators, two blonde, yellow-gold eyes males shivered, the one clutching his metal prosthetic leg, reliving some dark memories. Arena 3. Since his opponent was decided to forfeit, Gaara simply returned to his seat, though he wondered what said opponent was doing right now. With Eleonora. And when told to rest and not strain your arm, we mean rest. And. Do. Not. Do. Tita was ending her tirade at Eleonora, who had a lopsided smile as Limalicia took center stage with her lecture, with Ludmila and Sophia waiting their turn patiently. Off to the side stood Tiger, the sword rifle in his hands as he kept it away from Ellen. Arena 4. Both contestants immediately sprang back, Kankuro summoning his puppets, 5 of them, and Kurisuchi going through some seals for a Yoten ninjutsu. Mihik didn't seem fazed when the match ended soon after, Kankuro failing to dodge the widespread lava wave Kurisuchi sent his way, and said Kunoichi not noticing one of Kankuso's puppets moving to her side, hidden by her arm and the lava she had spat out, and shooting several poison senbon into her leg. Well, she felt those at least. Whilst Kankuro was screaming in pain at having second and third degree burns on his side, Kurisuchi began feeling woozy. Both collapsed at roughly the same time. Whilst this is a draw, neither contestant appears to be in any state to continue. Mihik said. With Naruto. What will you do about that, Shizuka? Hinata asked. Talk with her. If that doesn't work, she's yours. Naruto answered. I don't know the rules in Nadeshiko concerning them challenging already married individuals or getting challenged by individuals of their own sex. Then we should ask Tiny Sage about that when we see him next. Hinata said, her voice carrying a dangerous undertone. Naruto nodded, then chuckled. You know he doesn't like it when you call him that. Well, it's not my fault he is compensating for something with his more recent crappy writing, Hinata said with a proud smile. He should have continued the writing style of the Tales of the Utterly Gutsy Ninja, instead of starting that itcha nonsense. This from someone who actually reads that stuff. Naruto teased, making Hinata blush vibrantly. Hey, it gives me ideas for our bedtime activities. She stammered. I never heard you complaining. Never said I was. Naruto simply responded, turning his attention back to the stage where Najenda listed out the next battles. Arena floor. Najenda drew 2 names from the bucket next to her, reading them out loud. The first contestants of the first battle for the last set of battles for the day are B of Kumagakure and Asumi from Iwagakure in Arena 1. She announced. She was about to grab another pair when an Iwa shinobi ran up to her and whispered something into her ear. Correction. Asumi of Iwa has chosen to forfeit due to the injuries sustained from her battle with Ito of the West. Najenda announced. She then grabbed 2 more slips. Shikamaru of Konoha and Tamari of Sunagaker in Arena 2. She announced, making many shinobi from Suna and Konoha snort at the irony. Their second battle in as many tournaments in as many arenas. Berserker Naruka of the West and Hot Aki Kakashi of Konoha in Arena 3. Legenda continued. Kakashi looked at the whiskered blonde Shinobiwarrorsorsoldier. He wasn't sure what to think of her. He saw her fight with Chijuro. He decided that maybe it would be safe to keep his distance from her for the time being. Legenda then spoke up. And that leaves Kiba from Kurigakure and Aoi from Kurigakure in Arena 4. The 2 Kiri shinobi looked at each other and nodded in mutual agreement. Arena 1. Man, what a drool, this is not cool. There's a saying I'm gonna grab, what a drab. B said, drawing circles into the ground. Was he ever going to find a worthy fight? B. Shut up with the lame raps. A shouted. And that is my line, what a drab. Derry added his own 2 cents. Arena 2. You better not pull of that stunt like you did last time, lazy ass. Tamari said. What would you do if I do? Shikamaru asked boredly. I doubt you can be more troublesome than mom. Oh, I have my means and ways. I am sure I can be just as troublesome if not more so than your mom. Tamari said with a smirk. What could be more troublesome than my mom? Shikamaru asked, interested. Oh, I don't know, hook you up with a girlfriend, one that your mom will approve of. Tamari said with an evil grin, twinkling eye included. Like you? Shikamaru asked, turning the tables on her. My Ka-san kept on bitching to me about how I forfeited to you and nearly made my father invite you over for dinner had you and Itagakure not invaded and killed her favorite deer. Shikamaru sighed. It's troublesome, but she really still holds a grudge against you for that and has a heavy skillet ready to beat you into the ground with. Would you two stop flirting and kiss already? Riza asked. I swear, you are worse than Edward and Winry when the general and I come over for a cup of tea, she muttered, making the 2 shinobi blink, look at each other, then pointedly find the ground more interesting as they fought to get their blushes under control. Arena 3. Kakashi studies Naruka out from the corner of his eye whilst reading a certain little green book. Judging by the muscles of her arms and her stomach, she is a strength-type fighter. He thought. And definitely strong enough to break a few bones if I allow her punches to connect, to quote the Nara clan. How troublesome. Hey, old man. Naruka spoke up, making him gain a tick mark. Stop checking me out. I don't have a thing for weak lazy old perverts. Akiri it is, Kakashi thought, the reasonable adult in him willingly stepping aside for the non-reasonable adult to take over. Or at the very least, Konoha hidden to Jutsu Ugi. Raiten. Senengarashi. Hey, Sparky, how far can I bury his ass in the ground? Naruka asked Laxus. Deep enough that he survives, but not deep enough to we can't dig him back out. Laxus responded. Alright. I'll send him all the way to bedrock. Naruka said with a smirk, cracking her knuckles. Laxus eyed. Naruka never really listened to anyone other than Naruto and their family. Arena 4. May the best Kirinin win, Aoi Dono. Kiba said, holding out a hand. Aoi nodded and shook it. But Naruto and Hinata. Who do you think will win these matches? Hinata asked. Between Shika and Tamari, it will be difficult to say. Unlike during the Chunin exams, there are no trees or walls there to give the lazy ass any additional shadows to use for his technique, so Tamari definitely has the advantage, but then again, if he is anything like back then, he has at least 6 plans ready and another 12 ready to pull out of his ass. Naruto answered. Hinata giggled. That definitely sounds like Shikamaru-san. And do you think we can do something about the tension between those two? Sure, just send a message to Shika's mother and to Gaara, make things extra troublesome for Konoha and especially the Nara clan. Naruto smirked. I am sure that Mrs. Nara will be happy that her son has a girl he likes and will want to meet her, origins notwithstanding. Hinata just shook her head with a smile. As for Naruka and Kakashi, Naruka is going to win this, hands down. I guess that we should have had someone warn Kakashi that Naruka is the leader of the Western Amazon Brigade, he said with a smirk. Those ladies are deadly, as you know. And short-tempered Hinata commented, remembering the third to last nation to have peacefully joined the empire with some concessions, mind you. Sure, they have unrestricted traveling rights within the empire, but at least they are forbidden from challenging married men for their hand in marriage. They nearly went to war over that until Naruto explained to them that he was happily married and did not want to constantly have women hounding him day and night, then asked them if they were happy sharing after Hinata glared them into submission. Grudgingly, they conceded. Down amongst the arenas. Match begin. Laxus, Mihik and Riza called out and Laxus had to turn into lightning to avoid the ensuing shrapnel. Arena 2. Tamari, remembering last time, immediately opened her fan all the way and bit her finger. Shikamaru lazily threw a flashbang behind him, the strong light extending his shadow because he was too lazy to do it himself. Tamari growled, actually growled, and dogs and cats within several city blocks of the Colosseum ran for their lives as they heard the dangerous sound, the rats and mice running after them in fear. Making several alcoholics witnessing the spectacle of rodents seemingly chasing cats which in turn are seemingly chasing dogs who were running for their lives. Many of those people took their bottles and poured them down the drain, thinking that they had had a bit too much to drink. "You caught me again, for fuck's sake," Tamari shouted. "Language. There are small kids amongst the spectators," Shikamaru said. "Anyway, I forfeit," he said. Tamari and Riza asked. "If I were to win this, I'd have to deal with the likes of the 4 Road Raikage, the 5th Kizikage, Guy Sensei, and who knows what class of monsters the other winners thus far are. No thanks. Much too troublesome," Shikamaru said. "I just promised my mom that I'd make it to the second round." Tamari stomped over to him, grabbing his collar and holding him close. "Listen here, you lazy piece of shit," I warned. She didn't finish the sentence as Riza had moments earlier sent a pleading look at Izumi Curtis, who understood the silent question, and alchemically raised the ground underneath Tamari's back foot, sending her tumbling forwards and into Shikamaru, making them kiss. "Welp, you heard the lazy guy. Winner is Tamari of Sunagakur," Riza announced. "And though he may not get the first prize, he definitely got the girl." This got many catcalls from the crowd as Tamari began chasing Shikamaru around the arena. "And they already have couple spats. They sure work fast." To add to the fun, Shikaku in the stands was taking a video of the whole ordeal, chuckling as he remembered when he and his wife got together swap out Riza for his own father, the Suna girl for Nara civilian, and the arena for a meadow in the Nara forest, and the tournament for the first meeting between him and his wife after learning that their parents had signed them up to be married. And history might have repeated itself almost scene for scene. Arena 3. Laxus had barely finished saying the words when Naruka exploded in a dense mass of chakra, screaming berserker. Kakashi was shocked enough that he shielded his face with his book, not the other way around as he was wont to do. OSH, he began before dodging a punch from Naruka that shattered the entire arena, sending debris flying everywhere, only to be stopped by the barrier surrounding the arena itself. Such strength. Naruka turned towards him, mouth seemingly full of sharp teeth, her long spiky hair giving her an animalistic aura, her eyes glowing, yes glowing, red, and steam seemingly exiting her mouth as she gave a sharp exhale. With an animalistic roar, she threw herself at him again. Grabbing her arm, expecting to throw her over his shoulder and out of bounds, Kakashi realized that A, she was far stronger than he anticipated, B, he had no chance, and CQC against her sheer strength, C, she was sprouting those chains of hers from her back this time, D, he fucked up by not making a clone in that moment. As Naruka sped past him, the chains wrapped around him and the ground, keeping her from flying out of bounds, whilst at the same time suppressing Kakashi's chakra and, with a helping tug from Naruka, sending him flying right at her, mailed fist beeped and ready for the punchline, should there be one. "This is going to hurt," Kakashi told himself before being buried in a foot of concrete. "Aww," he groaned. "She hits as hard as guy with 3 gates open," he thought, his head spinning as Naruka reared back another punch, sending him further into the ground and into a world of pain. A third punch brought Kakashi blissful unconsciousness, whilst the fourth was stopped when Naruto, still in disguise, caught her arm moments before she hit Kakashi again. In the background, Laxus was naming her the victor whilst calling for the medics, saying there's a priority 1 here. "Calm yourself, little sis," Naruto said, slowly embracing the still berserk but motionless Naruka. Slowly, the chakra around her began to calm down and return to her body, the chains beginning to fade away, her eyes returning to the vibrant color they usually were, as she slowly began to return the embrace, crying into his shoulder, happy that he was always there to bring her back. But the Kages. Is it wise to leave such an unstable weapon roaming freely? Danzo asked the Western attaché who was with them in to answer most of their questions. 1. She is not a weapon. He answered, his voice remaining calm, but his eyes burning with anger. She is the adopted little sister of our emperor, one of the few who can calm her down after entering the berserker stage. The attaché mellowed out. I was there when the emperor and his cousin rescued Naruka from some laboratory where she was tested on, where someone tried turning her into an emotionless weapon and instead created the woman you see before you. Many of the Kages flinched, hearing that. Most of them, bar Danzo, detested the idea of human experimentation after all. You keep on calling him the emperor, does he not have a name to add to that? A family name or a title, Danzo asked, trying to eke some more information about the royal family that he could possibly use for leverage. You are awfully interested in information you don't need to know, Mr. Hokage. The attaché commented. But to answer your question, the emperor has many titles, but the one the population knows him by the best is the second unifier of the West. Second? Inoki asked. Indeed. Our emperor is the second emperor, the first one passing away due to illness a few years ago with no heirs, but proclaiming him as his successor. The attaché said with a smile. The current emperor was the first person to agree on the first stream of unification, and later on, became the second most well-known individual within the empire after the first, Emperor Kurikuma, himself. Danzo activated his hidden Sharingan. Surely there is more you could tell us about your emperor. He said, only to feel the point of a very sharp sword at his throat. Whatever power you were about to use to manipulate the attaché's mind, cease it immediately. Sae demanded. Else you wish to spend your time here locked away in a cell. Danzo mentally glared at the Onikijin, but complied. In Arena 4. Upon hearing the start of the match, Kiba immediately rushed Aoi, knowing that he needed to gain an advantage over the more experienced shinobi quickly. Alas for the swordsman, Aoi knew this as well and engaged him wielding a tanto, both curing and enhancing their blades with lightning chakra. They exchanged blows for a short while until Aoi turned the ground beneath their feet into an elastic substance through the use of his unique lava release. The sudden uneasiness of the ground caused Kiba to miss Aoi and the elder shinobi to deliver a slash along Kiba's thigh, drawing blood. Kiba jumped a distance away and assessed the situation. Aoi had turned the field into an advantage to him, despite knowing that the technique he used ate a ton of chakra. Kiba was bleeding from his non-dominant thigh, but he was still relatively filled up. Nodding to himself, he decided to turn the match into one of attrition. Noticing that his opponent wouldn't attack again, and thus realizing what Kiba was planning, Aoi cancelled his AoE jutsu from earlier and rushed Kiba. Sparks flew as their weapons clashed again. Those who watched the match grew to respect these two jonin as they both fought well. Neither allowed himself to be pushed into a corner, and both fought with all they got. Eventually, the match ended with Aoi managing to land a kick on Kiba's wounded thigh, making the leg buckle, and then holding his tanto to the swordsman's throat. Winner. Aoi of Kurigakure. Mihik announced. And please send a medic over here. One of these guys is close to being anemic. Of KonohaMaru and Co. Well, guess that ends the fights for today. KonohaMaru commented. And it looks like another speech is coming up. Mogi said, pointing to where the emperor and the empress sat. Oh joy, another speech, KonohaMaru muttered, shaking his head whilst Yuden and Mogi smirked whilst Hanabi thought, you'd pay attention if you knew who that actually is, with a smirk of her own. As they approached the railing, the stadium became quiet. Many have fought today in celebration of the peace and union that the unification war has brought us. The emperor began. Let us all take the rest of the day to recover from the excitement and reconvene tomorrow for the next set of battles. The four of them joined the rest of the Konoha group as they left the Colosseum, Mogi and Yuden, suspiciously allowing KonohaMaru and Hanabi to walk next to one another, much to the former's confusion and the latter's, not so, secret delight. So, do you guys want to try out that restaurant near the hotel? KonohaMaru asked his friends. Sorry, I'd like to lay down for a bit. Didn't drink enough because of the excitement. Mogi answered, giving Hanabi a small smirk. I was invited to attend a math class in a nearby school later on. Yuden added his own excuse. Don't worry. If the two of you like the food there, next time, the bill will be on me and Mogi. KonohaMaru grumbled something about being ditched by his friends, whilst Hanabi was feeling a substantial amount of heat in her cheeks. I guess it's just us then, KonohaMaru sighed. So, you up for some grub? Hanabi didn't trust her voice to give a coherent answer and merely nodded, a small smile gracing her lips, leaving KonohaMaru in a slight daze. Though he quickly shook it off. Must be this western sun. He thought. Tell Lord Danzo that the Tsuchikage and his entourage has arrived at the Imperial Palace. The Root Anbu ordered one of his subordinates. The Root team had been following Inoki the whole day, ever since Danzo had learned that the Tsuchikage was invited to the Imperial Palace earlier that day. Sir. The operative answered and sped away. Everyone else, follow the plan. Infiltrate the palace and spy on the meeting. The leader said, getting nods from his two remaining subordinates. None of them saw the wolf's head poking out of their shadows, nor the green goblin head glaring at them from just behind the wolf. Better inform Rimuru-sama and Emperor Dono about this, Gabuta thought as he and his companion disappeared back into the shadows. Later. Inoki and two of his jonin, Kuritsuchi and Akatsuchi, were escorted into a large room with a large circular table located in the center. They saw the emperor. Presenting the Tsuchikage of Iwagakure no Sato and his entourage. The guide announced. Welcome Lord Inoki. Please, have a seat, all of you. Dinner is about to be served. The emperor gave a warm welcome. The others in the room, namely the entire imperial court, nodded in agreement. I thank you for the invitation, Lord Emperor. Inoki responded as he approached a chair. Soon, the food started to arrive and conversation began light in order to break the proverbial ice. Before we start with the negotiations, I have to ask, are you aware of the shinobi that have been spying on you ever since we sent the invite? Shanks asked. Inoki quirked an eyebrow. You had people following us. Only to ensure that you weren't threatening our people. Public security and all that. Same reason you have your Anbu Shadow VIP visitors. Naruto responded, making Inoki nod in understanding. And to ensure your safety in case someone attacked you first. Indeed. Hinata agreed. What Counselor Uzumaki meant was the team of 3 rude Anbu sent to spy on you. Before anyone could react, there were a quick series of thumps coming from the ceiling, followed by 3 cocooned individuals falling through the ceiling panels. Seems as though the Hokage has just lost the ability to meet with us. Izumi commented. Send them to the sealing department. Naruto casually ordered the guards. Have them remove any and all seals, mental, physical and otherwise, from them, then send them over to the Mindwalkers. I doubt they know much, but still. Also, check them for any suicide pills and cyanide molars. Sir. The guard said as 3 of them grabbed the cocooned Anbu and dragged them out. Anyway, now that the pests have been dealt with, let's begin the real negotiations. Rimuru said. Indeed. What would Tsuchi no Kuni ask of us? Makarov asked. Inoki thought for a moment before answering. Apart from a trade agreement and non-aggression pact, you wouldn't happen to be open to a defensive alliance, would you? Naruto chuckled. Well, we could work out something for the first 2, I will have to decline the last one. After all, I have no wish to involve myself, nor my people and allies, in the politics or wars of the East. Not to mention, your people still hold a deep hatred of my father. Inoki and his guards quirked an eyebrow as the emperor reached up to remove his mask and hat. Inoki's eyes widened by what he saw. The little shit from the Third War died when the Kyuubi attacked 2 decades ago. You bear him a striking resemblance, you know. He commented with a low chuckle. So I have been told. Naruto commented. And as I said, with the deep-seated hatred your people have for my father, would an alliance even be feasible? Inoki sighed as Kuretsuchi answered. In all honesty, probably not. Inoki glared at her, but sighed, knowing that his granddaughter was correct. Many of them if they knew who you were would call for your blood. While in private, I respect the difference between the parent and the child, in the public eye, I share the view of my people. It makes it easier to gather individuals who are willing to listen when the time comes. All the more reason to break the ice first before doing something dramatic. Naruto responded. Counselors and allies of the empire, all those in favor of a trade agreement and non-aggression pact with Tsuchi no Kuni. All hands rose in response. Right then. Naruto turned to the old Tsuchikage. We will write up a draft for a trade agreement and the pact to be sent you both yourself and your daimyo for approval, in order to begin formal negotiations. Just then, the desserts started arriving. For now, let's enjoy a speciality from the land of spring. Inoki nodded, glad that negotiations were mostly successful. Meanwhile, with the Kumo group. He was still sulking for not having had a proper battle during the tournament, ignoring the fact that he could have had one against Nobari of Kiri had he not gone second stage. But hey, his brother is scary when angry. Samui was still feeling irked by the memory of how Luffy's neck stretched the way it did, followed up by the strange questions that blue-haired medic kept on asking her about her chest and waist. Seriously, it was as if that Wendy girl had a bad case of A-cup angst. A was busy pumping iron as he listened to the thoughts of the individuals who had battled that day, with most agreeing that the West was very powerful and that attacking them would be paramount to suicide in the long run. But the Kiri group. Nothing much going on here other than most of the Kiri delegation huddling in the corner because Mei, who had been stalking around the room like a hungry predator, had just horribly misunderstood what Aoi had said once again. The keywords in question. Old age. Single. Forever. The results were predictable. Note. Aoi had actually tried to calm her down by saying, "Don't worry, Mei-sama. You'll die of old age before you die of being single forever." Suna group. Suna was all quiet, not counting Kankuro and a few of the older jonin teasing Tamari about her second fight with Shikamaru and her threatening death should they spread rumors whilst sporting a vibrant blush. Well, the only odd thing was that Gaara was outside the building speaking with a member of the Uzumaki clan, asking him if a Uzumaki Naruto resided in the West and if so, if he could meet him. You're in luck. Naruto-kun does indeed reside in the Yggdrasil Empire. Actually, he is here in the city as well. I cannot guarantee anything, but I'll see if I can organize you a meeting. He made a note which he gave to another guard. He is one of, if not the hero here after all. The Iwa group. Apart from fearing for their Kage's well-being, the Iwa delegation was peaceful. If by peaceful, you mean loudly playing poker and accusing the other members of using Doton ninjutsu to create fake chips. To be fair, they create those chips at home using Doton, but seriously, how would they know? Other groups. But the Nadeshiko group, Shizuka was being congratulated for making it to the next round, while Akiyuki was huddling in a corner after seeing a pillar of fire suddenly erupt from somewhere in the distance. She even began shivering uncontrollably when someone lit a candle near her. Maybe I should just give up on men, it's too much effort to understand them, she muttered to herself. Some others looked at her in worry and/or amusement. Tetsu group. But the group from Tetsu, the samurai, were sitting in a meeting discussing the lessons learned from their fights in the prelims and the tournament itself. And drinking the local sake. Konoha group. Unlike the other groups, Konoha was in turmoil. Everyone, almost, expected that Kakashi would be one of those to move into the third round, alongside Guy and possibly Lee, though the civilians who accompanied the group also believed that Sasuke would also make it this far. More on the team later. Anyway, Kakashi was still in the hospital in intensive care after it turned out that his opponent, Naruka, had caused extensive damage to his spinal column, thus forcing him to remain in the ICU of the nearby hospital. Lee and Guy, on the other hand, were hyping themselves up using their patented BS of an illusion. Shikamaru, out of character, was showing real fear because his father had shown him the video of his battle with Tamari, specifically the aftermath, and nothing Shikamaru said had dissuaded the older man from his decision of showing the tape to his wife. Well, Shikamaru was more scared of what his mother would do when she sees what happened during and after his match. Anzo was sitting at the hotel's dining room table, drinking tea, while inwardly planning on his next moves. He would soon discover what the Emperor and the Tsuchikage had discussed and sabotage their relationship from within. What he did not know was that one of the Empire's Mindwalker agents was hiding in the ceiling almost directly above him, reading his thoughts, not by infiltrating his mind directly, that would give him away, and Danzo has some serious mental defenses, but by reading the brain waves. Very few in the agent's clan had ever possessed that ability, and he was the first in generations. In one of their rooms, Team Konohamaru plus Hanabi were discussing Naruto and Hinata, wondering where in the city they resided. Hanabi was playing along, not aware of the Rudanbu spying in on them. While Mogi believed that they lived in the noble section because of their claimed high status, Konohamaru was countering that since Naruto was in the military, he would be closer to the military district, and while Yuden listened to everyone's arguments, Hanabi thought for a moment, then added that since Naruto and Hinata were pretty humble, it could be possible that they resided in the main civilian district. That threw Konohamaru and Mogi for a loop so convincingly, the Anbu spying on them was taking notes. And then there was Sasuke, who was stewing in his room, ignoring Sakura's wails and pleading cries. He was an elite. He believed that the only reason that Guy and Kakashi were better than him at fighting was because they have years upon years of experience over him. Not that they were more talented than him. But then, how could he lose to someone who was supposedly around the same age as him? I.e. the Emperor. How dare he sit on the throne that should be his? This and so much more were going through Sasuke's mind while the seal on his neck faintly glowed. Meanwhile, approaching the Empire. Hiashi breathed in the clean ocean air as he stood at the bow of the ship sailing towards the port city of Kocher. Negotiations with Yumi no Kuni had gone very well indeed, and he had managed to get the trade agreement signed within a few days. Now, nearly 3 weeks afterwards, he was going to join his youngest child in the west and hopefully meet up with his eldest and his son-in-law, not to mention his nephew. You seem rather happy about something. The captain approached him. That's because I am. Hiashi replied. I have family who moved to the west a few years ago and haven't seen them since. I am planning on surprising them with a visit. Smart. Now that the fighting is over with the rebuilding taking up most of if not all the energy of the former soldiers, enjoying the peaceful times with family is a treasure to keep close to your heart. The captain answered. Did you fight in the wars? Hiashi asked. At first, the captain admitted with a sigh. But then I discovered that there is a far safer and in the long term more lucrative alternative to fighting, and that is to trade goods from the east in the west, such as fine wine, sake and silk. Especially spring country. They love themselves some good tea and coffee. Hiashi nodded. Where in the empire does your family reside? The captain asked. Last I heard, they had a dwelling in the capital. Something about them having inherited the home of the previous owner after his passing. Hiashi explained. I have been to the capital a few times since the war ended. Got any names? The captain asked. Uzumaki Naruto and Uzumaki Hyuga Hinata. Hiashi responded, noting the widening of the captain's eyes. Well, I'll be damned, the captain chuckled. I know exactly where they live. I won't spoil the surprise though. As Lady Hinata-sama's old man, I am sure that any number of guards would be happy to bring you straight to them. I know that they partook in the war and rose to high standing, but are they really that well known? Hiashi asked. Oh, don't worry. Apart from the first emperor himself, those two are the subjects of the most novels written in the empire, despite their shrouded eastern origins. Myth and rumors speculating their origins vary from refugees to slaves to being the children of literal gods. The captain chuckled. A load of wallopus if you ask me. They are humans like me and you. So they are close to the emperor then? Hiashi asked. Something like that. The captain answered. It's getting late. You better get some sleep. We're entering the port before noon tomorrow. Don't want to look exhausted when meeting your kids, right? True, Hiashi admitted. Next morning. Where are they? The lone Rudanbu wondered, looking for the rest of his team that had followed the Tsuchikage into the Imperial Palace the previous evening. Not here. A voice whispered into his ear an instant after he suddenly found himself unable to move. You know what we do with rats. We feed them to the wolves. The Rudanbu never even saw the face of the goblin that dragged him down into the shadows. Imperial Palace dungeon. Anything? Naruto asked the head interrogator as he exited the interrogation chamber. It is as you suspected. They didn't know much about Danzo's plans. They did know about some hidden cells and bases we didn't know about though. Naruto nodded. Many thanks. Wipe their minds and return them to their leader with a warning. Next time, we will give a proportional response. Naruto said before walking out. The tournament would resume in an hour and he still had to sort some things out. Such as why Hinata had rushed into the bathroom earlier in the morning. Naruto shrugged. Must be on her period or something. He thought. Later. As people began filling the seats, Naruto saw security officers were running around apprehending some people trying to sell illegal substances. So, where is Hinata? Hanabi asked. She should be arriving here soon, unless something happened along the way. Naruto began. But Hinata. Hinata walked into the stadium and was beset upon by a bunch of brand new, out-of-the-loop, third-rate pickup artists. Fortunately for her, Skull arrived at that moment and gave some colorful threats to the people, who paled and high-tailed out of there. My lady, it isn't easy being a beautiful lady, is it? She asked Hinata. Back with Naruto. So, how was your date yesterday? Naruto asked, making Mogi and Yuden smirk. Konohamaru choke on his drink and Hanabi pulling a Hinata and turned bright red. It wasn't a date. Konohamaru said after a coughing spurt. Hanabi and I just went to a diner, followed by having an ice cream desert in the park between the diner and our hotel. The two of you owe us a free meal, by the way. Konohamaru told his teammates, whose teasing smile didn't subside. Bullshit. From what I heard, the two of you were chatting rather amicably over a meal. Naruto said, sensing the other person he had requested to be there approaching. Where did you hear that? Hanabi and Konohamaru asked. I was there with Karen and Tayuya and saw everything. The Konoha shinobi turned to see the towering form of Niji standing behind them, flanked by two redeeds. Niji and Iasen. Hanabi jumped up and embraced her older cousin, who did not expect that. Hey there, Hanabi-sama. He smirked at her pout. When will you stop being so damn formal, Niji? Naruto commented with a smirk. When you make me an uncle, Naruto. Niji countered with a smirk of his own. Then you can start now. The group turned to see Hinata approach them with Skull on her heel. I just got back from the doctor's. I'm pregnant. Naruto froze before silently sitting down. Niji blinked again thrice before following his cousin-in-law's example and sitting down. Great. Now he had to learn how not to be formal. Thankfully he had no. Tayuya would be a bad example to learn from Karen as well, since she takes after both him and Tayuya, not sure what to classify her as. Hanabi, Mogi and Skull meanwhile were congratulating Hinata whilst Konohamaru and Yuden were doing the same with Naruto, who was giving them a lopsided smile. As the conversation continued, they were called to silence as the Emperor, Aka Shadow clone Naruto, began his greeting, while another clone was disguised as Hinata sat in the shade behind him, waving exactly as Hinata does. Welcome to the final day for the combat tournament. We started with 48 contestants, which has been narrowed down to just the 12 warriors in front of you. He said to Chars. Since I know that all of you are here for a fight and not for long speeches, Naruto's clone continued, Hinata giggling into her hand behind him whilst the spectators chuckled, let us jump right into the day's events. The clone nodded at Najenda, who nodded back and approached the name bucket. Same rules as yesterday, chaps. I pick your names, you head over to your designated arena. The contestants nodded at her words. Izumi, Curtis and A from Kumagakure to Arena 1. A and that damned housewife looked at each other, nodded, then strode over to the first arena. Monkey D. Luffy and Tamari from Sunagakure to Arena 2. As the two approached their arena, Tamari glanced at her opponent, who continued walking with a face-splitting smile on his face, chanting something about meat fried, grilled meat, ready to eat or something. Might Guy from Konohagakure and Aoi from Kurigakure to Arena 3. Aoi and Guy immediately began sizing each other up as they approached their arena. Lastly for this round, Natsu dragged Neil and B from Kumagakure to Arena 4. B grinned, eager to finally fight someone who wasn't a chicken or injured. Agenda then continued drawing names from the bucket. For last round of the semi-finals, we have. She was interrupted as Kankuro collapsed, his face flushed and sweating profusely. Medics, get him to the hospital. Agenda shouted as Wendy ran over with a few paramedics. The three remaining contestants, Gaara, Shizuka and Naruka, were worried about Kankuro, Gaara, wondering who their opponent was, Shizuka, or just plain old watching a butterfly as it landed on her outstretched finger, Naruka. But Kankuro. As Kankuro was rushed out, Wendy scanned him with her magic. He's got several inflammations around his organs closest to where he was hit by that lava attack yesterday. Notify the doctors. He needs, Wendy commanded as they continued running. Let it be known that shinobi are tough cookies. As Shizuka and Gaara looked on in interest on who would be fighting whom, with Naruka still playing with a butterfly, Agenda cleared her throat. Gaara of Sunagakure gets a free pass, as his opponent would have been his brother. Agenda announced. That also leaves Berserker Naruka and Shizuka from Nadeshiko to enter the arena. And due to this change, the final rounds following this one will be happening one at a time. Cheers and murmurs greeted her. As the two female combatants walked up to the stage, Shizuka was surprised when the Emperor appeared on the stage. I am just here for your safety, Shizuka-san. You've seen what happened to Hot Aki Kakashi from KonohaBash. I am here to prevent her from losing herself again. He simply said. Shizuka nodded in understanding. Up in the stands. Hey boss. What is your relation with that Naruka girl? Konohamaru asked. It's complicated. I can't say much to you or anyone from the east by imperial decree, but let's just say that she is close family. Naruto answered. Really? Konohamaru asked. What can I say? If Konoha knew about how powerful I have become, they won't stop at anything to get their grubby hands on me of my family, my growing family. He added, looking at Hinata with a big smile. One she mirrored. All I will say about Naruka is that she is part of the Uzumaki clan. Just then, someone approached the group and quietly talked to Neji, who looked surprised. Naruto-san, Hinata-sama, sorry to interrupt, but he was interrupted by Naruto. Too damn formal, Neji. He rubbed Hinata's stomach in emphasis. No need to corrupt my child with your nonsense. There has been a development that requires our attention. A case of 7 Texas Alpha. Naruto and Hinata turned quiet at the hidden message. 7 Texas Alpha meant that Hiashi had arrived. 7 Texas Alpha? Yuden asked, his mind buzzing in its attempts to crack the meaning. Something Neji and I came up with during our time in the military. Code words to shorten long and tedious explanations. Naruto explained. Sorry guys, but this required our attention. Let us know just how bad the fight goes. Do you think Shizuka-chan will lose? Konohamaru asked. Their chances at winning stand at around 98%. That is if Naruka remains in her base state. Naruto explained. Ah, her berserk state. Yuden and Mogi said, making Naruto nod before he, Hinata and Neji left. Back in the arena. Naruka and Shizuka stood staring at each other after Makarov began the match. Stop staring. You won't get anywhere with that tactic. Naruka suddenly commented. Besides the fact that I am your type. Excuse me? Shizuka asked with a twitching eye. Why else would you be checking me out? What, are my tits big enough for you or something? Naruka asked in a deadpan voice. Or do you have a thing for redeeds with what some people call a chain fetish? Sorry, but I cannot afford to have a loving relationship, Shizuka began, only to jump with a yelp when she felt something slap her ass. Turning around, she saw Naruka had moved behind her and slapped her rear. A poof behind her signaled that the Naruka she had been talking to earlier had been a clone. Oh, chillax, girl. I know all about the deal between your teacher and Tiny Sage. You will only find disappointment on that road. When you get home, find someone to love, get laid and have kids. Amazon style. Naruka said. What about you? Shizuka asked, jumping away from the chain that emerged from Naruka's back. Still on step 1. Nobody here is A, strong enough to challenge me, and B, single. Naruka said, before suddenly appearing inside Shizuka's defenses again and groping her. Firm and large. You'd make a killing in my Amazon brigade here. The stadium was silent with the sudden action, not counting the loud smack that echoed through the stands moments later as Shizuka reacted on instinct. Why would you? Shizuka began. You trained your body, true, but being an Amazon is more than just being physically strong. Naruka explained, seemingly not caring that a bright red handprint was visible on her face. And don't try to deny it. Your whole village exists to fight and fuck anyone stronger than them. Shizuka grimaced, getting ready to charge in, only to have a chain wrap around her ankle as she was hoisted into the air. So, we can do this the easy quick way where I either bury you in the ground or throw you out of bounds, haven't decided yet, or the head way. Which would you prefer? Naruka asked. How about I surrender? Shizuka asked. I still got to find that Naruto guy and challenge him. I'd prefer to do so in one piece. Naruka and the Emperor looked at each other before both shrug. As I said, best of luck with that, but you won't get fucked by him. Several people will murder you if you try. She dropped Shizuka into her waiting arms. What? I like the way you feel. Naruka said plainly. Firm and a good size. Nothing like those limp-beaked people who tried to force me. Didn't expect you to swing for your own team. The Emperor said. Naruka shrugged, ignoring the ever-growing red in Shizuka's face. All the Amazon Creed says is to fight and fuck someone strong. No gender was ever stated. Also, I haven't taken a swing yet other than her ass. Just don't go tooting her horn in public, okay? The Emperor said as he walked to a position beneath his booth. Ladies and gentlemen, with that, we come to the semi-finals, with 6 individuals remaining. A from Kumagakure, Might Guy from Konohagakure, Sabaku no Gaara from Sunagakure, Berserker Naruka from the west, Monkey D. Luffy from the west, and Natsu Dragneel from the Fairy Tail Mages Guild. Legenda announced. The crowds cheered as the 6 mentioned people stepped onto a line for all to see, a few feet away from the Emperor. The 6 of you, through luck or your own abilities, have shown that you deserve to stand here in front of these people, my people. You have shown grit and courage in your matches and have done your homes proud. If your people are not happy about it, then there is something very wrong with your kindmen. The Emperor said, his eyes pausing on Guy as he said the last bit. The last 2 rounds will be held in quick succession. Instead of having Legenda-san draw your names, this time, your fates are in your own hands. He continued as an attendant walked up with a tube with 6 sticks sticking out of them. Each of you will draw a number. 1 will fight 4 in Arena 1, refereed by Laxus Dreyer, 2 will fight 5 in Arena 2, and 3 will fight 6 in Arena 3. The winners will face each other in a 3-way free-for-all in the 4th arena, which will be relocated into the center between the other 3 arenas, refereed by Dracula Mihik. Good luck, warriors. May the best fighter win. The crowd grew silent when they realized that they could not hear what the Emperor was saying, but the cheers grew again when A left for Arena 3, then Gaara heading to Arena 1, followed by Natsu following Gaara, Guy heading to Arena 2, Naruka jogging over to Arena 3, and Luffy joining Guy in Arena 2. But Hiashi. The Hiashi was used to seeing exquisite palaces, splendidly decorated mansions and gaudy palaces that all showed the owners compensating for a lot of things, but knew from the infrequent missives between him and his daughter and son-in-law that they had no choice but to live in a palace. Needless to say, he was both impressed and not impressed when he was led straight into the Imperial Palace's inner court with the words the Emperor will be meeting you post-haste. But he was impressed because for once, he was visiting a palace that did not show the opulence or gaudiness that usually comes with great wealth. Instead he saw relics of war and peace, pictures depicting famine and war, harvest and victory, all with a plaque beneath saying, lest we forget what and who we fought for. And unimpressed because he had to walk 3 kilometers, pass 5 security checkpoints, through a maze of corridors, and through 9 massive torii gates, only to arrive at an immaculately kept garden that actually made him stop and stare at the wonderful sight. I know the feeling. He snapped out of his shock when he heard Naruto speaking next to him. Hinata has a green thumb. She's always had one. Hiashi answered, before blinking. What are you doing here, by the way? Shouldn't your home be in the city? He turned to Naruto and Hinata, who were holding back their mirth. It is. Welcome to our home, Otu-san. Hinata said, walking forward and giving her father a hug. I am most confused right now. Hiashi said as he hugged his eldest, as though on autopilot, as his mind was trying to make sense of the entire situation. We couldn't afford to let Konoha know who we had become, so nobody there knew that we are the Emperor and Empress Consort of the Yggdrasil Empire. Naruto explained, smiling at his father-in-law. We let Hanabi Yamato in on the news when we met her 2 days ago. Hiashi didn't say anything, even as tears of relief, joy and happiness fell from his eyes. And then the questions started and immediately stopped when Hinata straight up told him he was going to be a grandfather. I guess you got it from him, right? Naruto asked as he hoisted the now fainted Hiashi onto his shoulder and carried him over to the garden central pagoda to rest. Must be. I don't ever recall seeing mom fainting, but she sure did turn red when she was embarrassed. Hinata giggled. Back in the Colosseum. Naruka, Guy and Natsu stood facing each other in a triangular formation, waiting for the match to begin. Out of the tree, only Guy looked exhausted, Naruka only looked frazzled, and Natsu was unscathed. Makes sense, if one had seen their matches. I fought Luffy with 5 gates opened, whilst Luffy had gone 2nd gear, the smaller arena not allowing him to effectively utilize 3rd or 4th gear and 5th was so overkill that even he knew it wouldn't be a fun fight then. Despite his dorky personality, Guy is surprisingly perceptive, having realized that Luffy leaves himself somewhat open to attacks when he sends his fists backwards to charge up an attack, but compensates for it with some ludicrous reflexes, aka, haki. He also noticed a ridiculous law of physics defying trait of Luffy. He is not affected by Newton's laws when attacking in the aforementioned manner, at least when he is grounded. So, when Luffy appeared before him, both hands colored black and far behind him, Guy instinctually shattered the ground Luffy was standing on, surprising Luffy as Guy threw a large chunk of rubble into Luffy's torso, sending him backwards, even as his fists came flying forwards, Luffy's eyes and tongue comically staying behind as this all transpired. Unfortunately for Luffy, he failed to get back onto the platform before he landed on the Colosseum's floor. Even if seemingly running in midair seemed to almost work. Natsu meanwhile was once more going indiscriminate firepower, rising the temperature to his maximum when he noticed that Gaara's defense was annoyingly strong. Well, since his entire ethos could essentially be described as, if I can't break the defense, I need to attack even stronger. And predictably, so he did. With fire and lightning. After a particularly mighty roar, Gaara was forced into using one of his strongest defenses, several layers of heavily chakra-infused sand and an orb around him. Unfortunately, before he could manifest his eye sand to see what was going on, Natsu came and gave the ball a mighty kick, sending it rolling back over the edge that Gaara had unwittingly been pushed to. But the rest of fairy tale. He is learning. A girl with short white hair commented. Next to her, a blonde girl nodded in agreement. True. He is starting to think ahead. That, or he is saving his energy for when he gets to fight Naruka. She said. I don't think that he can think that far ahead, Lisana, Lucy. They turned to see a slight girl with blue hair cradling a child in her arms. What do you mean, Levi? Lucy asked. Salamander probably just wants to fight Naruka again because she is strong like Urza. They turned to see a large black-haired man approaching. Gagiel smirked. After all, she is one of the few who can take on all 7 of us dragon slayers and come out on top. Speaking of. In Arena 3. A was proving to be quite a pain in her ass, Naruka decided. No, literally. Whenever she grabbed him with her chains, he'd send lightning down the chain into the base of her spine, making her clench her teeth as she felt her cheek spasm for an instant until she let go with her chains. Big sis Karen did not mention anything about this, she thought with twitching eyebrows. That moment of distraction nearly cost her. Larry A shouted, appearing right in front of her, lightning cloak active. Buster shot Naruka countered immediately, sending her leg upwards, right where the light does not shine. A wind-enhanced kick. Credit where credit is due. A's lightning armor still managed to stun her whilst he went rolling by, clutching his jewels in pain. So, your lightning is a major pain in the ass, so let me copy it, will ya? As A got up, he was a wall of wind appear around Naruka, covering her head to toe in a wind barrier. Right, that worked. At least want to try that Lariat Thingy again, Mr. Mosquito Repellent. A huffed, realizing that he was beat at this point because she had not only an elemental advantage, she was a bit stronger than him and fast enough to react to anything he threw at her. Brain. He never finished his jutsu, as a chainmail fist clad in wind pierced his armor, stuck him in the gut and sent him flying, coughing blood, into the barrier surrounding the arena. Oh zap some other flying pest, you giant bug zapper. Naruka said, her clothes and hair looking frazzled by the electricity. Bloody pest, Naruka grumbled as she marched off towards the 4th arena, a chain link morphed to look like a comb in her hand as she tried to make her hair somewhat neater. Up in the stands. Who do you think will win? Levi asked Lisana and Lucy. Naruka. They said instantly. No offense to our boyfriend, but unless he has a way to counter her jutsu and bloodline, he won't stand a chance fighting her in an area that small. Lucy explained, with Gagiel nodding solemnly at her words. Naruka still hadn't revealed any of her trump cards yet, such as her weapon of choice. Lisana was about to add her own comment when. Everyone ready? They all turned to see Mihik standing in between the 3 combatants, getting nods from all 3. Then, let the final match of this tournament begin. With that, he got out of the way as Natsu literally burst into an inferno. Naruka was consumed in a maelstrom of chains, and Guy was caught in the middle, regretting having won against Luffy. But Naruto, Hinata and Hiashi. Naruto and Hinata were giving Hiashi the grand tour of the Imperial Palace that very few individuals outside the Imperial Court get to see, and Hiashi was impressed. The inner court of the palace was far smaller than he had expected, only the size of the Hyuga compound back in Konoha, not including the garden. And when he saw the ensuite kitchen, he chuckled when Naruto commented, quote, "My wife is the goddess of the culinary arts." But in between the different rooms, they talked about their lives in the West, how Naruto came to be the emperor, the roadblocks to their marriage, and how Neji was doing. That last one made Naruto gain a devious smile, one that made Hinata chuckle awkwardly. Neji? Well, the thing is, she began, unsure as to how her father will take the news. He recently started a relationship with 2 Redeed girls, and all 3 of them are now in a 3-way relationship. Naruto said. One of the girls is my cousin, and the other is a foul-mouthed girl from Iowa who is currently giving him lessons in informality. Hiashi stroked his chin and thought. I would very much like to meet these ladies. Sure. We were about to head back to the Colosseum so I can give the final speech after the finals. Naruto commented as they entered the main hall. Would you like to stay with us or shall we organize you a room with the rest of Konoha? Konoha please. I still need to make sure that brat from the Sarutobi clan does not do anything reckless to Hanabi. Hiashi said in a stern voice, making Naruto and Hinata chuckle. The end. So how was this part? I hope you like it. And if you like it, share this part with your friends and like the video too. And don't forget to subscribe our channel for daily awesome fanfiction. Okay, it's time for me to go. Bye bye.